In a stunning and dramatic escalation of the conflict, Russian forces have launched a major ground offensive into Ukraine's northern Sumy regions, overwhelming local defenses and capturing the border town of Authoritative Buda. The assault, which began in the pre-dawn hours, represents the opening of significant new front in the war, a move that military analysts believe is designed to stretch Ukraine's already beleaguered force to their breaking point. This is not the limited cross-border raiding that has characterized the fighting in this area for over a year. Instead, it is a coordinated, large-scale mechanized invasion involving tanks, armored fighting vehicles, and substantial numbers of infantry, all conducted under the cover of intense air and artillery bombardment. The swift fall of Authoritative Buda has sent a shockwave through the Ukrainian military command and has triggered panic among civilian populations across the entire northern frontier, raising fears that this could be the start of a broader push toward the regional capital, Sumy city. The Russian operation was meticulously prepared. For weeks leading up to the ground attack, Ukrainian positions along the Sumy border were subjected to a relentless campaign of shaping operation. This involved constant shelling from artillery and rocket systems located safely within Russian territory. More significantly, Russian aviation intensified its use of powerful guided aerial bombs, systematically targeting Ukrainian fortifications, command posts, and ammunition depot. This aerial campaign effectively blinded and suppressed Ukrainian defenders, destroying observation points and forcing them to remain undercover. At the same time, Russian electronic warfare units worked to jam Ukrainian communications and drone signals, creating chaos and isolating the front lines unit from their command structure. By the time the armored columns began to roll across the border, the Ukrainian defense in the immediate area were already degraded, disorganized, and ill-prepared to face an attack of this magnitude. The assault on Authoritative Buda was executed with speed and overwhelming force. The main thrust was carried out by several motorized rifle regiments, which advanced on the town from three directions simultaneously, preventing Ukrainian units from establishing a coherent defense or retreating in an organized manner. Eyewitnesses who managed to escape the area described waking up to the deafening roar of jet engines and the ground shaking from explosions, followed by the unmistakable sound of tanks' treads on paved roads. Russian special force units reportedly infiltrated the town's outskirts hours before the main assault, seizing key intersections and government buildings, which sowed further confusions among the small contingent of Ukrainian border guards and territorial defense force tasked with protecting the town. These units, armed primarily with light weapons, were not equipped to stop a full-scale armored assault. They would quickly outmaneuver and face the choice of being encircled and destroyed or attempting a dangerous retreat under fire. The capture of Authoritative Buda is far more than a symbolic victory for Russia. It provides the Russian military with a crucial foothold inside Ukrainian territory in the north. From this position, they can begin to consolidate their force, bring in more troops and supplies, and establish a base of operations for further advance. The immediate strategic threat is to the south along the main road that leads directly to Sumy city, a major urban center and the administrative capital of the region. A Russian drive on Sumy would create a new humanitarian crisis and force Ukraine to divert a significant portions of its military resource to defend a city that had been relatively safe for over 2 years. Furthermore, a deep Russian penetration into the Sumy region could potentially threaten the vital ground lines of communications that connect Kyiv with Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv, and the entire eastern front in the Donbass. This raised the terrifying possibility of a grand strategic envelopment, where Russian forces from the north could attempt to link up with forces advancing from the east, trapping a huge portion of the Ukrainian army. The news of the northern invasion has placed the Ukrainian general staff in an almost impossible position. This development comes at the worst possible time as they are desperately trying to manage the unfolding crisis around Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region, where their troops are on the verge of collapse due to exhaustion and ammunition shortage, as described by soldiers on the ground. The military command now faces an agonizing choice that could pull some of their most experienced and best equipped brigades away from the brutal fighting in the Donbass to try and stabilize the new front in Sumy. However, doing so would dangerously weaken the eastern defenses, potentially accelerating a Russian breakthrough toward Pokrovsk and other key cities. The alternative is to leave the defense of the north to the already thinly spread and less equipped units in the area, risking a rapid Russian advance that could threaten the strategic rear of the entire country. The dilemma highlights Ukraine's most critical vulnerabilities: a severe shortage of trained manpower and a scarcity of heavy weapons and ammunition. For months, military leaders have been warning that they lack the reserve necessary to effectively defend the existing thousands-kilometer front line. The opening of another major front by Russia is a calculated move to exploit this weakness. It forces Ukraine to make an impossible choice, ensuring that no matter what they decide, one part of the front will be left dangerously exposed. The initial response from Kyiv has been measured, likely in an attempt to prevent widespread panic. A military spokesperson acknowledged heavy fighting in the Sumy region and stated that all necessary measures are being taken to stabilize the situation and repel the aggressor. However, they have yet to officially confirm the loss of Seredina Buda, a fact that is already being widely reported by Russian military bloggers and Ukrainian civilians fleeing the area. The international reaction to this new offensive has been swift, but has also exposed the evolving political dynamics among Ukraine's key partners. In Washington, the Trump administration responded with condemnation of the Russian action, but refrained from making any new concrete commitment of military support. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a statement calling the Russian attack a reckless and destabilizing act of aggression that further complicates the path to peace. He used the opportunity to double down on the administration's call for an immediate ceasefire and negotiation, suggesting that continued fighting only leads to such escalation. This tragic development underscores the urgent need for realistic diplomatic frameworks. Secretary Rubio stated, "The United States will continue to support Ukraine's right to defend itself, but all parties must recognize that a military solution to this conflict is not viable." Behind the scene, the Pentagon, under Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth, is reportedly in communication with Ukrainian defense officials. However, public statements from his office have focused on the importance of accountability for existing aid. An aide to Secretary Hegseth told reporters that while the situation is being monitored closely, any future assistance will depend on a clear and accountable strategy from Kyiv for how American resources will be used to secure their borders. This language is seen by many observers as placing the responsibility for the breach squarely on Ukraine, a subtle but significant shift in tone from previous years. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is expected to provide President Donald Trump with an assessment that likely framed the Russian offensive as a predictable consequence of a prolonged war. Analysts familiar with her thinking suggest she will argue that this proves Russia retains the strategic initiative and that a policy aimed at decisively defeating Russia on the battlefield is unrealistic and risks drawing the United States deeper into the conflict. This American posture is creating anxiety in Kyiv. Ukrainian officials understand that without a rapid and massive injections of new weapons and ammunition, they will be unable to contain both the collapsing front in the east and the new invasion in the north. The emphasis on diplomacy and accountability from Washington, while sounding reasonable, is interpreted on the ground as a sign of wavering commitment. The administration of President Trump, with its America First philosophy, appears more interested in finding an exit from the conflict than in providing the means for a Ukrainian victory. This perception, whether accurate or not, compounds the morale problems facing the Ukrainian army. Soldiers fighting in desperate conditions in places like Pokrovsk and now Sumy hears this message and are left to wonder if the world's most powerful nation is preparing to reduce its support. The human cost of the Sumy offensive is already mounting. Thousands of civilians from Seredina Buda and surrounding village are now fleeing southward, creating a new wave of internally displaced persons. They travel on clogged roads, often under the threat of Russian airstrike, carrying with them whatever few belongings they could grab. Local aid organizations and emergency service in Sumy City are scrambling to prepare for the influx, setting up temporary shelter in schools and public buildings. The stories of those who escape are terrifying. They speak of a sudden and violent takeover, with Russian soldiers appearing in their streets with little warning. Communications were cut almost immediately, leaving many people unable to contact family members or learn what was happening. The sense of fear and uncertainty is now spreading across the entire region, as residents in all the border towns and even in Sumy City itself contemplate the possibility that the war, which had felt distant, is now on their doorstep. In conclusion, the Russian offensive in Sumy represents a masterful and dangerous strategic move that fundamentally altered the landscape of the war. By successfully capturing Seredina Buda and establishing a new northern front, Russia has magnified the immense pressure on Ukraine's limited resource. This action forces a difficult, perhaps impossible choice upon the Ukrainian high command, pitting the survival of the Donbas front against the defense of the north. The attack was not a surprise in the sense that a northern incursion was always possible, but its scale and speed appeared to have caught the defenders off guard, highlighting the strain on Ukraine's military. The response from the United States under President Trump, characterized by cautious condemnation and a renewed push for negotiations, signals to Kyiv that it cannot expect a blank check or a surge of immediate aid to counter this new threat. As Ukraine grapples with a crisis of morale in the east and a full-blown invasion in the north, its ability to continue its defense now depends more than ever on its own resilience and the difficult decisions that will be made in Kyiv and Washington in the coming hours and days. The war has entered a new, more perilous phase, where the question of Ukraine's survival has become starker than at any point since the opening weeks of the full-scale invasion. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, and so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed, and that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to Socaine Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched the show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen the show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.